Today we're exploring the life of Zainab bint Jahsh, and honestly, this is a story that fundamentally reshaped early Islamic society. It's not just a simple biography. It's a profound look at how deeply entrenched cultural norms were systematically dismantled, and how one woman's life became the ultimate catalyst for major sociological and legal shifts in ancient Arabia. If you really want to understand how sweeping societal change actually happens from a foundational level, this is a perfect case study.
Before we get into the events themselves, there's a foundational concept we really need to keep in mind, and that's Samina wa Atana. It translates roughly to, we hear and we obey. I want you to keep this phrase tucked in the back of your mind as we go through this explainer, because it's essentially the lens for viewing all the revolutionary events we're about to discuss. It represents ultimate submission to a divine decree even when, and especially when, that decree completely contradicts massive societal expectations and personal comfort.
So let's kick things off with Section 1, Zayd and the Prophet.
To really grasp the gravity of what happens next, we have to understand the status quo in pre-Islamic Arabia, specifically by looking at a man named Zayd. Zayd's early life was a literal roller coaster. He was captured as a child, enslaved, and eventually given to Prophet Muhammad well before his prophethood. But it doesn't stop there. The Prophet actually freed him and legally adopted him. In that cultural context, this meant Zayd literally became known as Zayd bin Muhammad. He was recognized legally and socially as the Prophet's own flesh and blood son. That was the absolute, unquestioned cultural norm of the era regarding adoption.
Which brings us to Section 2, Breaking Class Barriers.
The first major societal shockwave hits when the Prophet proposes a marriage for his adopted son, and this proposal highlighted the intense class divide in ancient Arabia. On one side, you have Zainab bint Jahsh. She is a woman of extremely high, noble birth from the elite Quraysh tribe and the Prophet's own cousin. On the other side, you have Zayd. Yes, he's adopted, but his background is that of a freed captive who once held the status of a slave. In this society, placing a noble woman and a freed captive on equal footing for a marriage proposal, it was entirely unheard of. Honestly, it was scandalous.
Understandably, Zainab hesitated at first. The societal pressure and the ingrained class consciousness were just immense. But right in that moment of hesitation, a verse from Surah Al-Ahzab was revealed. It makes it crystal clear that when a divine decision is made, personal or societal preferences just have to step aside. Hearing this, Zainab completely dropped her reservations. She immediately embodied that concept we discussed earlier, we hear and we obey, and accepted the proposal.
And so, against literally all traditional Arabian cultural norms regarding class and lineage, they get married. Now, this wasn't just a union of two people. It was a deliberate theological dismantling of deep-seated class barriers. It was a practical demonstration to the entire society that piety and divine command entirely supersede tribal lineage and social hierarchy. By marrying his noble cousin to a freed captive, the Prophet was actively breaking the ancient mold.
Moving right along to Section 3, Changing Ancient Social Norms.
As groundbreaking as this marriage was, Islamic tradition holds that on a human level, it simply didn't work. The couple experienced severe compatibility struggles. Zayd actually went to the Prophet repeatedly seeking a divorce, and the Prophet, who was anticipating massive societal backlash, kept advising him to hold on to the marriage and be patient. But eventually, the incompatibility was just too great, and the divorce became inevitable. It's this very raw, human element right in the middle of massive historical shifts.
Now, this divorce triggered the exact moment a deeply ingrained cultural taboo was abolished by the new religious framework. Under the old pre-Islamic norms, an adopted son was legally identical to a blood son in every single way. That meant marrying their ex-wife would be considered equivalent to marrying your own biological daughter-in-law, an absolutely massive taboo. But the new Islamic ruling completely shifted this. An adopted son is deeply cared for, sure, but is not legally a blood son. The lineage remains totally distinct.
Which sets the stage for Section 4, A Marriage Decreed Above.
This is where things get really unprecedented. An explicit divine decree was revealed commanding the Prophet himself to marry Zainab. The purpose outlined in Surah Al-Ahzab is incredibly clear here. It was to serve as the ultimate practical demonstration that adopted sons were not blood sons. By taking Zainab as a wife, the Prophet was directly facing down the absolute fiercest cultural taboo of his time, proving that the old laws of adoption were officially overwritten.
This marriage was entirely unique, and Zainab actually took immense pride in that fact later on.
While the Prophet's other wives were married by their families on earth through standard contracts and guardians, Zainab's marriage was decreed from above. There was no need for an earthly guardian or traditional witnesses because the mandate came straight from divine revelation to serve a critical legal purpose in the new society.
Next up is Section 5, Etiquette and the Hijab.
Okay, we've all been to a party where someone overstays their welcome, right? Well, that exact thing happened here, but with monumental consequences. The sources recount that after the wedding feast, several guests just lingered in the Prophet's house. They totally lacked the social awareness to leave, and they chatted away for an uncomfortably long time. The Prophet, being known for his deep shyness and hospitality, felt too polite to ask them to leave, so he simply waited.
It's absolutely fascinating how everyday human friction, literally just guests lingering too long, became the catalyst for establishing enduring rules of etiquette. Because of this, new verses were revealed outlining strict boundaries. Don't enter without permission, leave when the meal is done so you don't burden the host, and if you must ask for something, do it from behind a screen or hijab. This single event firmly established the Islamic rules of privacy and the physical boundaries in the Prophet's household.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 6, a legacy of generosity.
Having navigated all these heavy legal and social rulings, it's important to look at Zainab, the human being. Her peers remembered her for her profound personal character. Aisha, another prominent wife of the Prophet, spoke with absolute awe about Zainab. She said she had never seen a woman more advanced in piety, truthfulness, and unparalleled generosity. In an environment where there could have easily been rivalry, that is huge praise.
What's truly remarkable is exactly how she expressed that generosity. Despite her noble, aristocratic background and her high status, she was incredibly humble. She actually worked with her own hands. She tanned leather and engaged in rough physical labor just so she could generate her own income. And she didn't keep a single coin. She donated all of her earnings entirely to charity. There's this beautiful tradition mentioned where the Prophet predicted that the wife with the longest hands in charity would be the first to join him after his death. Embodying this perfectly, Zainab was number one. She was the very first of his wives to pass away, cementing her legacy as the one whose reach in giving to others was truly the longest.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a question to chew on. Zainab's entire life was defined by laying down her elite status, her comfort, and her wealth to answer a higher call. It challenges us to look in the mirror at our own attachments to societal status and wealth. When a deeply entrenched cultural norm conflicts with a higher moral or divine calling in your own life, do you have the humility and the strength to say, "We hear and we obey"? It's something truly profound to think about.